So we're talking about kidney transplants today, and there is specifically a particular family we're going to interview about a young man who got his first one at age 2, and of course, and he's now 15, and he needs another one. But I was hoping to just kind of check in with you to get a broader context on the state of living donation and just anything you think might make our audience a little smarter about the need, the risk to the donor, and anything else that you would like us to know. So I guess I'll start with how hard is it to get a kidney?
It's a great question. Well, it is difficult to get a kidney, even a live donor, because most of the people that are on the kidney transplant list, there are over 100,000 people in the nation who are currently waiting for a transplant. There are more people than that even need a transplant, but there are over 100,000 who have met the criteria to get onto a list. Of those 100,000 people, more than half of them will never get a transplant because of the fact that your death rate increases once you have kidney disease. So it's very difficult to get a transplant when you're waiting for someone to die to give you a transplant. Now, it's much better to be in a situation if you have a live donor. But I tell my patients, it usually takes about 4 people to come forward to be a live donor for one of them to meet the criteria to actually be approved to be a live donor, because it's very difficult for a person to meet all of the criteria. You have to be very healthy with perfect kidney function. It is by far the best option for someone who needs a transplant, but it is very difficult to receive a transplant in that fashion because of the obstacles. We put all of these obstacles in the way because a live donor is putting their life at risk, not for themselves, but for someone else. That's why we call them altruistic, okay? But if the person clears all of the hurdles in order to be a live donor, then the process is very, very safe. In other words, it is the safest big operation that anyone could undergo because of the fact that the technology is that good, and because of all of the obstacles we put into place to make them be in the best physical shape possible. The chance of them having any sort of life-threatening emergency is very, very low. So it's a very safe operation, but it's very difficult to clear the barriers to become a live donor.
That's fascinating. I really appreciate that perspective. I didn't know that. So in that, having said all of that, you talk about the 100,000 plus people. Is this a problem that we could, or a need that could be more easily met if more people were to step forward? Notwithstanding the high bar you're talking about there, but is this a problem that doesn't have to be a problem? Does the wait have to be this long?
No, the wait does not have to be this long. Obviously, we need more people to be live donors. When I told you that most of those people that are waiting on that list will not be transplanted, what I'm really talking about are people waiting for dead donors, for deceased donors. But for live donors, for people that get a live donor transplant, the wait is not that long at all. Those people all pretty much survive to the point of being able to receive a transplant. So the best way for us to deal with this huge gap between the number of people that need a transplant and the number of kidneys that are available, it would obviously be to have more live donors. Only about 20 to 30% of the transplants that are done every year come from live donors. Most of the transplants are still coming from deceased donors. So obviously the gap could be closed if a lot more live donors came forward.
And then talk to me a little bit, because, for instance, in this family, none of the immediate family members have been a match, but they are still going to put their name in the hat to potentially be donors to someone else. There is a bit of a network, if I understand correctly, to where you could help the person you know by helping someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. We oftentimes will put people that don't match into what's called an exchange, a paired exchange. So let's say my son needed a transplant, and for some reason I don't match him. Well, my kidney could go to another family, and then that other person's donor kidney could go to my son if they match. So paired exchanges are done pretty much every day now in this country, and that is an excellent way to receive a live donor. It used to be that we didn't do these paired exchanges, and we did thousands less live donor transplants per year. So this is an excellent opportunity for people to give. The biggest barrier is not having a live donor. If you have a live donor in this country today, even if you don't match, you pretty much will get a live donor transplant because of the paired exchanges.
Oh, that's fascinating. There's someone out there that person will match with, and then in return you get. So if you need a kidney, you bring to the system, look, I have a willing donor, and that will then get you a match with
Yeah,
someone
pretty
else.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, pretty much. Because there are even organizations, of course, there's UNOS, the United Network of Organ Sharing, which is the quasi-governmental agency that runs transplantation in this country. They have a national organization that can help pair up people that have a live donor and but they don't match. But there are also proprietary companies in the United States that will also do the same service. So pretty much if you have a live donor, either at the transplant center itself or through one of these organizations, you can get a transplant.
Well, I'll give you the last word here. What if you saw a story on the news about kidney transplant or transplant in general, what would you hope people would take away from it?
Well, I think what people need to understand, and I think it's harder to understand this when you're talking about kidneys rather than, say, heart transplant or liver transplant. I think people immediately get it that without a heart, you would die, or without a liver, you would die. And I think with kidney transplant, oftentimes people don't understand that although there is dialysis that keeps people alive, kidney transplantation is absolutely the gift of life. And the life years gained in a kidney transplant is greater than a heart or a liver. So just like this child that you mentioned got all those years of living from that first transplant, a second successful transplant will probably guarantee that child another 20 or more years of life. So kidney transplantation absolutely is the gift of life. Healthy people coming forward to give one of the two kidneys that they are blessed to be born with saves lives.
And then, as I understand it, what's the downside to losing one of your kidneys if you're a live donor?
Well, once again, because of the fact that we are so careful in this country on who gets approved to be a live donor, the downside is really not that far down at all. The risk is not that high. It's very unusual for anyone that is a live donor to have any major sort of complication. So once you get through the operation and the perioperative period, once you have healed, long term, there's very, very little risk other than if the patient over time was to gain a lot of weight and develop secondary health issues like diabetes or high blood pressure. And even if they get to the point later in life where they themselves have kidney failure, then the system actually will allow them to get a transplant right away. But there's very little downside. You don't need to change your lifestyle at all. And you can go back to even the most robust physical activity within a month and a half to 2 months after the operation. So it's very safe. It's done minimally invasively. So very small incisions. People can get back to work within a month. And like I said, even playing football, you could go back to playing football within 2 to 3 months.
Wow. Okay. Do people ever do it without anybody and they just blindly come in and say they want to donate?
Yes, it's one of the things that gives me so much faith in mankind because I have done many of these patients that have come forward and just donated their kidney for the goodness of their heart. They just want to help mankind. So we call these non-directed donors. They just come to the transplant center and they say, hey, God wants me to do this, or I just want to do this to benefit someone, benefit mankind. So yes, we do see these non-directed donors. Approximately 2 to 5% of live donor transplants that happen every year are exactly that type of donor. It's a beautiful thing to behold.
Wow. Anything else you want to say, Doctor? I really appreciate this. It's been great.
No, I love whenever there is a light shone in this area because, like I said, this is giving life and people do it every day and they are the true heroes in this country.
Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and especially on such short notice. Pleasure meeting you.
No problem. Thank
All
you,
right.
Casey.
Hey,
Good
take
luck
care.
with the
Bye-bye.
story.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.